morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We hope it is good. Welcome to a very special edition of Geeks Who Like Sports, as we are welcoming in our Detroit sports expert. You are not seeing double. It is Ray and Ray today. I am Ray Carsillo, joined by my good friend, the host of Who Would Win Masters, the podcast, Ray Stakenas. Ray, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing great. I'm going to tell you that right now. Now, I heard a rumor that any show that allows two people named Ray on it at the same time probably should just be put out of its misery. Is that true?
If that is true, then I think both of our shows are in a lot of trouble, my friend. So,
obviously a show that would have two Rays on the show would do something before the show to make sure everyone differentiates between the two people named Ray, right? That's what a smart program would do, right?
Yes, that's what we would try to do. Yes. For those of you who don't know, I'm very excited. I guested on Ray's show, Who Would Win Masters. That episode will probably come out soon, so stay tuned for that. We'll share it on all the Geeks Who Like Sports socials as always, which was a fantastic one. I'm super excited for it. It was Link from The Legend of Zelda versus what's his name? Sung
Jin Woo from an anime
Solo
called
Leveling.
Solo Leveling. I don't even know the name of the show. Total Leveling. No, that's totally wrong. Solo Leveling.
Yes.
I told you that I was a little hurt today walking in the door, but that's okay. That's okay. We're rolling through.
Yes, we are. But I'm super excited to be a part of your show, and now, of course, happy to have you back here on Geeks Who Like Sports, because we loved it. We loved it when you came on the last time talking about Detroit sports, right? Obviously, I'm New York. Lee is Philly. Detroit is an interesting, right now is having kind of a resurgence in the sports world. But I need to kick things off because I also really wanted you on this week because my New York Knicks handled your Detroit Pistons in 6 games. Shouldn't even say handled, because it was a fantastic series. A couple of different calls, couple of different bounces could have easily gone your guys' way. But how do you feel as a Detroit fan, obviously, after being bounced in the first round, but also looking forward? Because to me, you guys have a really bright future there with the Pistons in that lineup.
I think I said last time I was on the show, it's the same. It's been for the last 4 years. It's been the same conversation ever since Cade Cunningham joined the team. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Well, yeah, you guys are not very good right now, but next year, you guys are really going to bring the heat. And then next year comes by and we're like a bottom 3 team again. It's like, okay, sure. It didn't work out this year, but with these draft picks coming in next year, you guys are going to be. And it's been that way 4 years in a row where I'm just like, is there ever a point where Cade Cunningham takes this team to anywhere at all other than a bottom 5, lottery pick? It's absolutely outrageous. And yes, finally, this is the year they were able to start putting it together. Some would argue if the referees had called the series fairly, we would have swept the New York Knicks. Mainly Knicks fans are telling me that. They apologize for deceiving the world with these results. But I would say losing in 6 and in game 6, having a 5-point lead with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, that's not a bad place to be. Cade Cunningham finally is showing, at least to me, a little bit about why he's the person they say he is. Mm-hmm. And also the front court's been really good, with Harris and Thompson. We got Hardaway Jr. running around back there. Is he 55 at this point? I'm a little bit confused about that.
I feel like when you reach a certain age, you can't use junior anymore in your name, right? You just right? I feel, I don't know, because to your point, I'm amazed he's still in the league.
It's crazy. It's not just that. You shouldn't be able to use junior once you pass 30. I think I'm the second. I am technically a junior. I go by the second and have.
I'm also a junior, by the way, actually.
See, there it is.
Yeah.
Ray Jr. That doesn't even work. This is outrageous. But I'll say also on the same twist of fate, if you're 22 years old just going into the NFL, you shouldn't put senior on the back of your jersey either.
Yeah.
If you're Titus Young for the Lions, put Titus Young Sr., and he was one of the most immature players ever. And then all of a sudden, overnight, season to season, he slaps a senior back there, and the eye roll was palpable. You could see it from Des Moines.
Well, we are going to get into your Lions in a little bit. But yeah, your Pistons finally did. You got the 6th seed, obviously, in the East, obviously starting to put things together. I'll say this. Yeah, the calls have not been great, but I feel like I feel like in general, I've been watching a lot of the NBA playoffs. I feel like the refs. I don't know if it's a league edict or whatever, but they have been swallowing the whistle a lot more in this postseason than in postseasons past. Not just in our series between Knicks and Pistons, but just in general. I've been seeing it in the Western Conference series and all around. And I feel like it almost feels a little bit more like 90s basketball where like, yeah, you can get a little more physical. You can get a little more, tough in the paint, little Charles Oakley style physicality. I want to get, what do you think? What do you think of that? Because it seems to be not just in our series, it seems to be around the league.
That's very interesting you say that. If you ask me, I'm generally in favor of that. Look, I'm a fan of the 1989 through 91 Bad Boys Pistons team. I'm a fan of the 2004 Let's Get to Work Pistons team. Probably the greatest basketball team ever assembled, if I could just be honest with you. As far as pure team goes and the way they work together, you're not, outside of the Harlem Globetrotters, you're not going to find a better team than that, and probably should have won the year after. They just blew it at the end. Things happen. They got their championship. I'm happy. Trust me. Anytime Detroit wins anything, it means anybody knows we exist, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I would much rather see at the end of a game at crucial times a ref eat their whistle than blow it for no good reason. I hated that Super Bowl with the Chiefs a couple years ago where they drove all the way down and then got a real ticky-tack holding defensive penalty to run out the last 2 minutes of the game, as opposed to letting both teams play. That was the first time they played Philadelphia, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And not just because I had money on that game, I swear to God. But the thing I'm saying is, give us a real ending. And that was my biggest problem with that. Well, for the most part, I thought it was fine. It was a little bit, but it's the NBA. The NBA officiating, now that the Tim Donaghy scandal happened, we all know it's rigged, right? We all know it's fake. We all know that it's fake like boxing, not real like pro wrestling, if I may quote Futurama for just a moment there. We know that there's games that they're playing out there because they want superstars to advance, all right? Keep it real, everybody. I'm not saying that the game is 100% decided ahead of time. That would be silly. But given a chance, suddenly the Sacramento Kings commit 9,000 fouls in the fourth quarter when up 20 against the Lakers in a crucial game, right?
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to say. They will go out of their way to try to nudge the game a little bit. And I think the Knicks are a bigger deal than the Pistons right now. And I think that one Hardaway play at the end was that game 2, 3? I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But it was right at the end of the game, and the entire city of Detroit's basically standing on their chairs being, obviously, you're not going to call that very blatant and obvious. Yeah, okay. Eat your whistle, ref. We know what's going on here. Yeah. And someday, and that's why we have to overcome it. I'll say, I believe it was Chauncey Billups. I might be having the player wrong for the 2004 Pistons, who said very famously, they asked him, you don't have any superstars on your team. Aren't you worried about who's going to take the last shot? And he said, it doesn't matter who takes the last shot if we're up by 10.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And that's how we have to play Detroit style basketball, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of teams feel that way. You're starting to see that around the league. What was it? The Thunder put up 87 in the first half, a record 87 in game 2 of their second round series. So they're like, yeah, if we score 150 points, we don't got to worry about Jokic or whatever.
Yeah, there's no defense we even need to play at that point. We're doing great. And also, I do want to add, who isn't happy that the Lakers are gone? Who isn't thrilled about that?
Yes.
I'm so tired of basically, I'm in LA, as are you, and I don't want to see them or hear them ever again.
Nope. I am so happy nobody's talking about LeBron and him crying about this or crying about that. It's wonderful. It is wonderful to see the Lakers out in the first round again. It's like, I'm sorry for your Pistons. I'm sorry. The Knicks, though, I don't want to say we're looking like a team of destiny right now.
Come on, stop it. You're a Knicks fan. That's like me saying that about my football team. You can't really go there.
I know. But I'll say this. They have had two of – you were talking about being up by 5 with 4 minutes to go and not feeling bad. The Celtics were up by 20 twice.
Yeah.
And the Knicks still were like, we got it. We got it. It doesn't. It also helps when obviously the Celtics go 1 of 14 from the floor in the fourth quarter. That allows you to chip away at that 20-point lead. But I want to get your thoughts as a basketball fan. Is this Knicks hard work, never giving up determination, or is this just the fact that the Celtics have basically just imploded in back-to-back fourth quarters that allow the Knicks to chip away at that?
You know the Celtics aren't going anywhere. They're going to come back. They're far too talented. They're far too well coached enough that to just lay down and give up at this point. So anybody who's already like smoking the victory cigar, or again, as we call him in Detroit, Darko Milicic, the human victory cigar, you should be checking yourself real quick. We all know the Celtics are going to be giving you their best shot. They've already proven their best shot is very, very good. So it would not surprise me to see them knot this series up at some point and force this to go very, very late, take it to 7, whatever's got to happen. Yeah. And honestly, I like this Knicks team. I like the way they play. They play hard, and I appreciate that. It's kind of what I like to see in my own basketball teams. But this is the NBA. As soon as you run into a more star-studded team, things are going to start magically happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's why actually even though we're up 2-0, it feels like game 3, it feels like we're still down in the series in a way. Like it feels like if we go up 3-0, then I'm like, okay.
Feel good about yourself then, but get there first.
Right. And I feel like the Knicks, and I don't think Thibodeau is going to allow this to happen, right? I think, but like, you've got your foot on their neck. You have to press down. You have to take game 3 at the Garden. Even if Boston wins game 4 to send it back to Boston, you have to me, game 3 is just as important as game 1 and 2 were.
It is. And you know you're going to get their absolute best shot possible.
100%. 100% because their back's against the wall. They're back pretty much. Because if you go down 3-0 in the NBA, even if you are a star-studded Celtics team, no team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in the NBA in history. And I please don't want them to be don't let this be the first.
Boston's known for doing some crazy things coming back in the postseason.
Yeah, against New York down 3-0. Yeah, I know.
Who could forget? It was pretty good.
Yeah, we'll get to baseball a little bit later. You did mention also. You mentioned your Lions. You mentioned some draft picks and all that other fun stuff. The draft just recently happened as well. Your Lions had 7 picks in this draft, including the number 28 overall, and you took defensive Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. Hope I'm saying that correctly. I want to get your thoughts on the Lions draft. That I'm not going to lie, I was surprised you went defensive tackle. I know this was a deeper defensive draft, especially in the trenches, but I was surprised that you went defensive tackle there at 28.
I'm done doubting Brad Holmes, the GM of the Detroit Lions. Do you remember the draft when they took some players named Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, and Sam Laporta? And at the end of the draft, people were like, D- draft. What are they doing? And every single one of those players is a dominant superstar in this league. Jack Campbell, maybe not quite to the level of the other 3, but holy crap, you guys. I'm done. Even if I don't understand it, and I did understand these picks, I knew walking into this draft for the Lions, it was going to be very, very unsexy. This is going to be a trenches draft. It's not going to be anything that we're going to be like high-fiving each other like we're Browns fans taking Johnny Manziel. That's just not what we're going to be doing here, right? So when we go with Tyleik Williams in the first round, the thing is, Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader are starting too. Aleem McNeil just signed a huge contract, but he's injured. He got injured late in the season with a bad one, I think a knee. And so he's not necessarily going to be ready for the start of the season. So there is an actual need there on the roster per se. And then DJ Reader's also kind of, a high up age at this point for a player of his caliber. He's still very, very good, and we are very thrilled to have him. But we don't think there's a ton of great depth behind him. Levi Onwuzurike is there. And we don't exactly know what we're going to get out of him. We think he's good, but we don't actually know. So the idea being that we bring it in Tyleik, he could potentially help right away until Aleem McNeil gets back. And then after the season, we don't need to necessarily keep DJ Reader to a bloated contract because we have somebody on a rookie contract who potentially could, fill that same role again. Look, I hate taking Buckeyes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it in any way. But I will say, for Tyleek's sake, when he got introduced to people of Detroit on a Zoom call, he made a point of it to pick up his cat and show his cat to the camera. And immediately I went, all right, this guy's maybe not so bad.
That is how you endear yourself to Lions fans, is you show your cat when you are drafted. That is great. But yeah, you mentioned the trenches. You guys also took 2 offensive guards. Honestly, I feel like, I'm not going to lie, I think you got a steal in Miles Frazier in the 5th round out of LSU. I wanted him for the Giants, so we went with Embo instead out of Purdue that late. And then you got Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. I mean, look, you're shoring up the middle there. Obviously, for whoever's, Gibbs is more of an outside back, but he could run between the tackles if he wanted to. But obviously, to make sure Goff has some protection, you took some big fellas there in the middle, and you said it's not sexy, but boy, does it make a lot of sense. And those are 2 really nice picks, in my opinion.
And me too. I think Frazier actually had a 3rd round grade, and we got him in the 5th round, if I remember this correctly. And Ratledge, we traded up to get Ratledge. He obviously, Brad Holmes, he gets his guys. He doesn't really care if people call him overdrafting. Again, they called him overdrafting the year they took those 4 superstars. And every single one of those, except for Brian Branch, he fell. But the other 3 were like, whoa, what are they doing this for? They're picking the wrong guys. No, we're not. We had a huge need at guard, if anything. We got Graham Glasgow, who from Michigan, obviously tremendously talented. We've got Christian Mahogany, a 6th round pick from the year before, who's shown promise. He was another guy who fell about 2 rounds deeper, 3 rounds deeper than he should have. We're very high on him as well, but potentially with Frazier and Ratledge, those could be our starting 2 guards. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of the 2 of them won a starting job in camp and was starting right away on that really dominant offensive line. So I absolutely love these picks. I knew coming in we were going to take a guard or a center guard in the 1st round or 2 rounds. And that's exactly what they did. No part of that part of the draft surprised me. I knew defensive end or defensive tackle was also likely on the other flip side of that.
Yes.
So this pretty much laid out. Now, some would argue that Tyleek Williams got overdrafted. He had a mid-2nd round grade. Mm-hmm. But again, if Brad likes you, he's going to go get you. He just
and that's the thing.
To get him.
Right, is that you don't know he would have been there in the 2nd round for you.
You don't. And if you really are high on this guy and he's really sort of on that tier board and it's about to drop off, I trust, again, in Brad we trust. I do believe that he's going to make the right decisions. I might be a little hesitant to start jumping up and down, but at the same time, like with a track record, taking Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round, for gosh sakes, you give the man some dap, because let him cook.
Yeah. No, you guys, I think, had a very solid, like you said, solid, but it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't flashy. It was you filled needs, you added depth. You said you got your edge rusher, I think, in the 6th round. So like this way to give yourself a little extra depth there, especially after, you lost Aiden Hutchinson last year to a broken leg. And that obviously, you guys got hurt because of a lack of depth and some just very unfortunate injuries towards the end there.
10 million injuries on the defensive side of the ball. I think Washington Commanders had a very good offense. Yeah. I didn't think they had 45 points against us in Detroit. Good offense. It just, at a certain point, we just couldn't rush the passer anymore. We couldn't do much of anything. And you can't rely on 2 safeties who are the only 2 really healthy people left, period. You can't rely on 2 safeties to cover everything on the field. It just, at a certain point, you're going to get burned. There were so many injuries in every single position across the board. There's just only, it really sucked, because that defense, you saw at the beginning of the season how strong that defense was. And then as soon as Aiden went down, Ali McNeil went down, Carlton Davis went down to a freak jaw injury. I believe Malcolm Rodriguez went down. We lost another cornerback. It's just one after another. And at some point, you just got to start laughing and be like, what are we even doing? We had to sign people off the street to be our first people off the bench in a playoff game. Yeah. That's outrageous.
Yeah. No, it was an unfortunate series of events for you guys there in terms of the injuries just piling up towards the end of the season. But again, you guys you guys are going to be, for the most part, healthy. You're going to get healthy over the course of the season. You guys are obviously, to me, Obviously, you've got Minnesota now. They're going to be starting, McCarthy. So yeah, so you're going to have a rookie quarterback there. The Bears, to me, are still in rebuild mode, although they'll probably be better. And I still think that, yes, the Packers did take, Matt Golden out of Texas there, the receiver. I still think you guys are the cream of the crop in the NFC North. Obviously, divisional matchups are going to play a big role, but as long as you guys beat the teams in your division, you guys should be set.
That's it. And they went 6-0 in division last year. So I mean,
Yeah.
like I feel like we look, I think we have the most complete team in the NFL. I mentioned that like going into the draft, all we needed was one guard. How many teams could say that walking into the draft, right? And it's mostly just about depth with us and just dealing with the injuries. And with any luck this year, look, we went 15-2, despite the fact that our entire defense was hobbled since about week 6, you know? And so the fact that this team was able to put that much together, the big question marks for us in my brain are both offensive and defensive coordinators. They both left to get head coaching positions elsewhere. And we have one guy in John Morton, who I believe came from Denver, who seems like he's another Dan Campbell guy, but from a little bit further back. I believe maybe in New Orleans they knew each other for a little bit. And he seems like he'd be good. I don't know if he's going to be as creative. Does he need to be as creative? I don't know. As long as he doesn't get an ego about him and he builds off of what this team's already doing well is great. And then Calvin Shepard, complete unknown. You know, a lot of people peg this guy in 5 years to be a head coaching candidate. That's how highly people think of his leadership ability. I don't know him. I don't know him enough, and I haven't really seen him, what he does. The people on the inside are raving about him. But at the same time, until he's done it, he hasn't done it. And sometimes that spotlight, especially with expectations, can be very bright for a first-time defensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens again, especially what you mentioned. Ben Johnson, of course, goes to the rival Bears. But again, I think it's still going to take a little time for him to kind of figure out what to do with what he has there. And then, of course, Glenn goes back to the Jets, where he played a good chunk of his career.
I'm sorry for Jets fans. Look, Aaron Glenn, I think, is a good coach. I think that he is a leader of men. I do believe that. I believe, and this is me being a little conspiratorial, but I think his style of coaching defense, and maybe it won't happen as a head coach, but I feel like he was throwing people around too much. I think he was having people put their bodies at risk way more than they needed to. And I think that him being defensive coordinator contributed to the attrition that we felt all of last year. I felt people were like they were being shot out of a cannon, but they weren't necessarily taking care of their own bodies while the game was going on. And you want that as a football team to some extent, but you can't have people being reckless out there. Yeah. And I fear that his defensive style was to have his players play reckless. And again, big results can happen from that. But as we saw, that there was no team left to play defense at the end of the year. So I would just tell Jets fans who have that excellent defense in New York, no offense to speak of, but an excellent, like, top 5 defense, I think, in my opinion, at least last year and the year before. Be worried if you start seeing players start going down a lot. Look for the way that they're playing and think to yourself, this guy's pushing them to do reckless things. Jets fans, that's just something as a Lions fan I'm just going to put on your radar before the season starts.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Jets because, again, they had that great defense with Robert Saleh, and then they fired Saleh, and actually that defense fell apart in the second half last year. So it's going to be interesting to see if Glenn can't reinstitute that. And again, I mean, look, they're hoping that Justin Fields can have a resurgence or a surgence, I guess, because he never really got going anywhere he's been. But yeah, that's going to be the thing with the Jets is can the Jets put up points?
I think the odds of Strawberry Fields by the Beatles reaching number 1 in 2025 is more likely than Justin Fields taking the Jets to the playoffs. I'll say it.
I like
that's
that.
A 7-10 team.
Yes, I agree. You know who's also going to probably be about 7-10? I think my Giants are going to be probably about 7-10.
Well, 7's a little bit of a reach, don't you think?
Not with our defense.
Okay,
I think
you got a good line.
I think especially after our draft, I think with Abdul Carter now, obviously he's going to help play the edge with you got Thibodeau, you've got Brian Burns, you've got Sexy Dexy, Dexter Lawrence. The Giants did trade up. They got Darius Alexander out of Toledo, who they were very high on as another defensive tackle. The Giants front 7, you got Bobby Okereke is very solid. And if that secondary can come together, they signed, I can't think of his name right now, the kid out of New Orleans to be the number one corner. They think that Banks can still be a solid number two. The Giants defense could probably steal a couple games.
It's sneaky good. I would just worry about where the points are going to come from. Look, Malik Neighbors is the truth.
Yes.
But what did you sign Jameis Winston? Are you the team that did that?
We signed both Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, man. You really think Russ is taking, I don't know, Russ might get you to 5 or 6 wins. We start talking about 7 or 8. Once you talk about your team as being a 7-win team, and this is just me spitballing, once you talk about your team being a 7-win team, you are talking about them as a potential playoff team. Because if you can win 7, you can win 10 in the NFL. I really do believe that. I believe that there's a margin where teams that are a 7-win team can get lucky, pull 2 more, go 9 and 8 and make the playoffs, you know? I don't know that the Giants are there, so that's why I consider them an under 7-win team. Maybe that's cruel and unfair, but in my brain, like, I don't see this team slipping into the playoffs regardless of what happens, so I don't consider them a 7-win team.
No, I think we're still one more year away from, Jackson Dart is going to sit this year, who I was very thrilled that we moved back into the first round to get. I think when he takes over, I think that's when the team will move up a little bit further, but I feel like, to your point, I think Malik Neighbors, I think that, we've still got Bellinger at tight end. I think we drafted that kid Fadone. We're adding Cam Skattebo to that backfield with Tyrone Tracy. I like Cam a lot. I feel like the Giants on paper, they're a 5 or 6 win team, and then that defense steals us another win, and we probably finish.
That's fair. I mean, we can look at the end of the season and find out who was right. There you go.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of it. Yeah. But the funny thing is look, at the end of the day, we're fighting for 3rd place with Dallas, in my opinion, because Washington and Philadelphia are the best teams in the East. And I do not care that Dallas added a headache in George Pickens this week.
I was going to say, I think that offense is going to be stellar this year.
They're one Dak. I mean, this is a lot of teams. They're one Dak injury away from completely being collapsing, because that team in particular, everything runs through Dak. And I don't know. Is Parsons going to wake back up? Is it going to be the Parsons from 2 years ago or Parsons from last year on the defensive side?
I'll just ask the question: does Parsons need a contract in the next offseason? That'll answer your question.
Yeah, well, there you go. I think it's a contract year. Is it for him? I'm not sure.
Most players, it is.
It's a lot. Yeah, those contract years come around real quick in the NFL.
They sure do.
But I mean, I feel like can George Pickens not be a headache in Dallas the way he was?
A huge headache. He'll be a massive headache in Dallas, but can he still play? He's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL as far as I'm concerned. I put him up there with the Jamar Chases of the world and the Justin Jeffersons, although he took a little bit of a step backwards last year, I think. Someone's going to yell at me, but just eye test, he didn't look as good last year. Maybe he was hobbled a little bit from an injury. But I think George Pickens is a top, bottom of the top 10, but I think he's a top 10 wide receiver right now and could surprise a lot of people. You put him in an offense across from CeeDee Lamb, who's also competing to be a top 10 wide receiver. Yeah. They're gonna do some numbers, especially if they can figure out any way to run the ball whatsoever. Right. I don't think Ezekiel Elliott's going to be the answer, y'all.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. And also what's interesting is that this is Pickens' contract year. This is his last year on his rookie deal. And the thing is, they just paid CeeDee Lamb. Are you going to pay another receiver, because you know that Pickens is going to want to get paid?
He is. He's going to get paid a lot too.
Yeah, so I get it. You only traded really a 3rd round pick next year for what could be a 1-year rental. But to me, Dallas is still is more than a receiver away from being a legit threat in the NFC, in my opinion.
They're not a threat to the NFC. These are coaches and GMs trying to keep their jobs one more year and then worrying about the future when the future happens.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. The other big story real quick with the draft, just want to get your thoughts on it, is because I was thinking that Mel Kiper Jr. was going to have an aneurysm watching the draft. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. What are your thoughts on Shadour slipping for all the way, not only all the way to the 5th round, but being the second quarterback drafted by Cleveland in this draft?
How would you like to be Dylan Gabriel, the third round pick from the Browns, having Shaduer Headache Sanders taken 2 rounds after you? I love that. I don't know if it was a fake social media post or not, but it just said Dylan wants to wear number 2 in the NFL, and Shaduer's like, what do you mean? And I hope that's true because that's phenomenal. Look, Shaduer Sanders completely botched the interview and the pre-draft process, as they say. A lot of people, there are many different viewpoints on this, and I'm going to outline a couple of them. One, there's people that think that he's outspoken and an African-American, and therefore there was a lot of racism involved in people taking them off his boards, and that he slipped super far to teach him specifically a lesson. And I don't think that that's necessarily totally wrong. If you look at some of these owners in the NFL, they got some viewpoints, okay? They don't always go public with them, but you look at the Woody Johnsons of the world, you know, they think some things, y'all, whether you want to believe it or not. I don't think that's impossible, but I don't think that's the full reason, right? I think people saw Shaduer Sanders as a backup quarterback. I think his talent grades didn't grade as high as Mel Kiper. And Mel Kiper, as we all know, has never missed on a quarterback before. Aforementioned Johnny Manziel. You know, I will say real quick aside, Merrill Hodge will always have my respect because there's a clip of him saying specifically, whoever drafts Johnny Manziel in the 1st round will be fired. And he was right. And I will consider his football opinions to be strong forever because no one was saying that back at the moment, right?
I think Hodge had him as a 7th grade talent or 7th round grade talent or something like. And so Shaduer Sanders, look, he has trouble. They think the biggest knock on Shaduer Sanders is he's going to have trouble playing outdoors in the cold because of the way he grips the ball and because of his arm strength not being that of, say, a Matthew Stafford, right? Who is really at the end of the day. And so you look at the teams that needed a quarterback, the only one that made sense taking him high given those limitations was the New Orleans Saints. And the New Orleans Saints have an owner that you could make comments about, of course, and they did not end up having him maybe on their board at all. Now, maybe he could have snuck his way into better conversation if, as I'm hearing, he showed up to like pre-draft interviews with like headphones blaring music that he refused to take off, and others with an entourage of 20 people in the interview room with him. Like, that's a man who does not seem to be taking anything seriously. Now, to Shaduer's viewpoint, he thought he was a top 3 pick to the Giants. He thought there was no way he's slipping out of the top 5 picks overall. He would tell teams outside of the top 5 picks, I won't even bother really talking to you or taking you seriously because I won't be there when you draft anyway. And he had overvalued his own talent. He overvalued his own character. And the thing is, if you're expecting somebody to come in and be, at best, a backup quarterback who can spot start once in a while, essentially what Jameis Winston is at this point, you know, what Justin Fields is at this point in his NFL career, if that's your ceiling on Shaduer Sanders, do you want a guy who's going to treat you like crap and whose father is going to be in the media every single day, second guessing every part of your team structure? You don't want that. So I can see why a lot of teams pass completely. And I can also see why Cleveland, bless you, Cleveland, trades up in the 5th round to get him, despite already taking if you were planning, if that was on the board of possibilities, just take him in the 3rd round, you weirdos. Nobody had Dylan Gabriel as a 3rd round grade. No, not at all.
And even close. So like, I question what's going on in Cleveland. That is a repeated statement I've had for roughly 40 some odd years and will for the next 40 as well. I don't know what's going on in Cleveland. From my understanding, he was there available in the 5th round. They had the capital to draft up. And from what I heard, the owner called down to the room and forced them to draft him. That's insanity. Did you see the clip of all the Browns front office people when the pick was made? No one applauded. No one even smiled. Unbelievable, because they know a headache is coming to town. Resurrect Deion Sanders' old tweet that says, no one should want to go to Cleveland.
Right. Yeah. No, it
He's
is
right, but still.
it is a, oh God, it is going to be the greatest car crash possibly in NFL history that we are
Can't
going to
wait.
watch there. It is unbelievable. And yeah, and to go back to the Giants, yeah, I mean, look, his interview with the Giants went infamously bad. Like, I mean, Dable basically let it know. He's like, this kid's uncoachable. He's uncoachable. And like for a quarterback whisperer like Brian Dable,
Yeah, of
right?
all people.
Like to be like, I can't work with this kid. I mean, to the point where it also came out supposedly the Giants put mistakes in like the plays and whatever that they were showing him, and he completely didn't pick up on any of them. And then the Giants revealed that to him, and he threw a temper tantrum. And the Giants were like, "There's no way this kid is not emotionally ready. He's not mentally ready. He's not mature enough to be ready to be a quarterback in the NFL." And it's also something, I mean, look, this is also what happens when I feel you've only been coached by your Hall of Fame father in the NFL your whole career. Like, he's never had another opinion or discerning opinion or other football guy in his ear for really his from high school to college at Jackson State to obviously Colorado.
Where are the assistant coaches on the teams he's been on to step up and to have his back? Did you hear any other coach besides Coach Dad repping for him at all? Because if I was an NFL team, I'd want to hear from the non-dad offensive coordinator at Colorado or the quarterbacks coach at Jackson State. Any of these other places, I would want to know how he treated them. Because how he treated them is how he's going to treat you. It's like that date and the person's nice to you but mean to the waiter. You get out of there.
Yeah.
You get out of there 100% of the time because, how you treat the people that can't necessarily, and those people could do something for them. But if you treat the people who can't necessarily do anything for you like crap, that's how you're going to treat everyone else too, as soon as they can't do something for you.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. So we move from one draft over to the other, although it hasn't happened yet, but it will. But the NHL draft, just going to briefly touch on this. The lottery was this week. And unfortunately, your Red Wings did not do very well. It was one of the few teams not to really move up in terms of the draft. You guys will end up being the 13th pick. My Rangers actually moved to the 12th. The biggest surprise, though, is that the Islanders, who should have been, if everything fell the way it should have, the Islanders should have had the 13th pick. The Islanders, though, somehow win the draft lottery.
Weird.
Yeah, very weird that a New York team that has seemingly been on the cusp for a while, and gosh, now we got to hear everybody from Long Island. It's going to be another dynasty, another 4 in a row. Oh,
sure,
gosh.
Yeah, no, everyone believes that.
Oh gosh. Anyway, Islander fans are some of the worst. Anyway,
look, I'm wary of any. I honestly, I have not been following the NHL since the Red Wings went into a tumble like 6 years ago. And so I passively check in every so often. I didn't even realize the NHL had a draft lottery until you told me today. And in my mind, this is the one conspiracy theory I 1,000% believe. You don't have a draft lottery for a sports league unless you plan to fix it. Unless you plan to rig it. In theory, the very first NBA draft lottery was done to get Patrick Ewing to the Knicks.
Yeah.
Even though they did not have the number 1 overall pick, they said, but we need this for our sports to, thrive. We need this person in this place. Yeah. How can we set it up so it will happen? It's the same thing when Cleveland got the number 1 overall pick and got LeBron James. Or Orlando when they got Shaq, and then the next year miraculously get a number 1 pick again. Remember, Orlando had 1 ping pong ball in there and miraculously got the number 1 pick after getting Shaq. They weren't trying to stack his team because they saw the star power in Shaquille O'Neal. I'm sorry, especially after the Tim Donaghy. That's 2 Tim Donaghy references in one show. I did that for you. Especially after that, there is no reason to take them seriously when it comes to that stuff. They are an entertainment venture more than a sports league. They are there to promote stars and make a ton of money, and it's working very well for them and has for a long time. So if the NHL is trying to do the same thing why would they not put the Red Wings with the top 3 pick? I asked that question. Like, what? They are one of the most important teams, maybe the most important team in the NHL. I say that as a Detroit person. They're definitely top 3. We can make an argument about other ones if you want to, but I don't think that there's a lot of other teams that have the same pedigree as the Detroit Red Wings historically, right? We're the New York Yankees of hockey for a reason, right? That's just what it is.
Technically Montreal is the New York Yankees.
Okay, well, listen. They're the New York Mets as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, boy. There's a lot of angry Canadians now.
That's okay. They don't
going Sacre Bleu. Oh, goodness. No, the only reason why I think that this is funny is actually because this is actually shaping up to be one of the weakest NHL drafts in a long time. So the fact that they're going to bury whoever the number 1 pick is over on Long Island, I think is actually kind of fitting in a way.
Yeah, look, I remember when Sidney Crosby got drafted, it was a big deal. When Alex Ovechkin got drafted, it was also a big deal.
Yes.
Very rarely, we don't follow college hockey or international hockey here in the United States, especially not here in Los Angeles, California. I don't know who a single person who's about to be drafted is. So it really doesn't matter to me. I mean, I guess it matters in the long term, but in the moment, it's not like the NFL draft where I get to see players that I know from my television set come on in here. So pretty much the NBA draft means something because we watch March Madness religiously and we get to see these people. And the NFL draft is the most important.
Yes.
For that exact same reason, because college football is so huge, right?
Yeah.
The other baseball draft, I mean, you hear about a player so often, but whatever happened to Tone Nash?
No idea.
Yeah, exactly. But he was the biggest thing ever when he was like 14 years old.
There you go. So, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I feel like your Red Wings are where your Pistons were a couple of years ago, where it's like you're going to be there, and then at the end you just seem to fizzle out for some reason. But you have a lot of good talent there. You got that kid Lucas Raymond, who I think is legit. I feel like you got some good talent on that team. I think Dylan Larkin is still there and whatnot, but yeah, I don't know. And hopefully my Rangers do what they did in the 90s, which is do phenomenal, then miss the playoffs, and then win the cup in a 3-year period.
I mean, that's not a bad way to be fair. And I will always go to stump for any player named Raymond.
No, yeah, there you go. Absolutely, 100%. So, but yeah, the Rangers just hired a new coach, Mike Sullivan. So we'll be interested to see if.
He's the one who landed the plane? I thought he'd be too old to coach hockey.
Not that Sullivan. Not that Sullivan.
Oh, the one who writes musicals.
Not that Sullivan either. Different Sullivan.
I'm out of Sullivans. I mean, the TV show host from the 1950s. I thought he was dead.
Not quite. Not that one either.
You guys hired the monster?
Yeah. Moving on from hockey.
Blowing my mind right now.
Moving on from hockey over to, we're going to wrap things up on the sports side with some baseball.
Why not?
Your Tigers are doing phenomenally. They just swept a doubleheader today against the Rockies. I mean, it's just the Rockies. The Rockies.
They didn't just sweep it. They blew the doors off them in 2 games. I watched both games from my office today in the background, and before I could blink, it was like 4-0 in the third.
Yeah, better. I think he won by a combined score of 21-3 in the doubleheader today.
Nice.
Before we get to your Tigers, the Rockies are on pace to be. I mean, we thought the White Sox last year were historically bad. The Rockies, they were, but the Rockies are actually the Rockies were like, hold my beer. The Rockies are now on pace for 30 wins this season.
Good. It's not good.
That is beyond not good. That is abysmal. Ray, is it time to have I think the league needs to contract, and I think that every player in Colorado just needs to be sent to every other team. Every team gets to take one person from Colorado, and the Rockies just have to start over.
We have talked about this personally. I believe contraction for American sports is necessary, and it will never happen because of the money involved, especially like the NFL. There's also no secondary NFL or football league that's going to promote a team. What are we talking about? Soccer teams in Europe and England and whatever are notoriously easy to have.
Yeah.
You don't need a whole lot of players. You don't need a whole lot of room, and you could play in any kind of, backwoods stadium that you guys want to. It's not the same with the NFL. Now, baseball, on the other hand, there could be an argument there because there are some very, very good, independent teams, minor league teams. Let's get the Savannah Bananas to replace the Colorado Rockies, and I guarantee attendance goes up 10% the very next year.
Yeah.
I do think that, especially in baseball, any sport where there's no salary cap, right? Any sport that doesn't have a salary floor, I should say. And baseball is one of the absolute worst offenders. You have a handful of teams who are $300 million or whatever, and then you got a handful of teams, or more than you should, that have like a $20 million payroll. Yeah. And it's embarrassing. And it should not be that way. There should be a floor and there should be a cap. And I understand why the big teams push the little teams and give them money, or however their structure works, to not do it that way, because the TV contract is very, very good. I do think, though, that some of these teams eventually, looking at you Pirates, looking at you Athletics, Rockies, White Sox, I think are at least trying. They're just not good. Right. I at least give them some dab because they turn it around and get decent often enough. But when was the last time we worried about the Pirates? They still have Andrew McCutchen on that team, for gosh sakes. What are we doing here? Yeah. It's outrageous. And I think if there was a way that the bottom two teams of Major League Baseball could get bounced out to a 10, 18 team, honest to God, real minor league organization that wasn't tied necessarily to these other teams. I mean, that's how they prevent it from happening, obviously. Yeah. But I think that some of these teams got to go, or at least got to have the threat of going above their heads to force them to try to be competitive. When I found out my Tigers last year, who won a playoff series, had a lower overall payroll than one starting pitcher on the New York Yankees combined, I thought to myself, look, Chris Ilitch is a terrible owner. He's a cheapo. And if he hadn't lucked into some wonderful generational talent, and I'm talking about, the Carpenter, the Cole Keith, the Tarek Skubal, for God's sakes. Yeah. These are generational talents coming through Detroit right now, drafted very, very well. But based on what he put into the team, this team should be the Pirates, right? Right. And Detroit Tigers are too important an organization. I'm not going to argue they're top of lore like so many other teams, but that is a historic team. That is a team that's been around a very long time and has a very rich tradition. And to see them have such a terrible owner who doesn't care about winning and is just cashing the checks really makes me angry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that too, it's like, and in same thing with the Pirates, which is, again, an original 6 franchise for baseball. And it's like, and again, they won't spend the money. In fact, we have a direct correlation to it this year because the Athletics finally, part of the deal to let them go to Vegas in a few years was that their owner, Fisher, had to start spending some money in free agency. So he went and signed Luis Severino from the Mets to go be their ace, gave him a $20 million a year deal and a couple other guys. And the Athletics, look at that. They spent some money. And as of right now, they have a winning record and would be a wild card team in the American League.
Suddenly decent.
What a concept. You bring in 2 or 3 big free agents along with that big that drafting well, and suddenly you're a competitive team. But your Tigers, though, are much more than competitive right now.
No, they're phenomenal. Like, this team's got to be looked at to be a potential, I'm not going to call them the favorite yet, because we got to get deeper into the season and see if they can uphold this. We've seen collapses before, but this is a team that got red hot in the second half of the year last year to even make the playoffs. Then they bombarded Houston, and, unfortunately, they didn't quite have enough against Cleveland. But Cleveland's like, that's a power team. Like, what are you going to do? Yeah. I'm not a fan of the city of Cleveland, but I will give dabs to their Guardians. Yeah. There are some extremely good players in that team. Ultimately, it's all about the Dodgers, though, because they are the best team in baseball. Yes. I think their payroll just eclipsed $1 trillion. Is that correct this year?
Yeah, I believe so. That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Look, they spend more than anybody. Or at least they're top 3, because other teams spend badly. They spend.
The Dodgers are easily, far and away, the number 1 spender in baseball. Yes, they are.
You never know what the sneaky Mets are going to do. Like, for every year, they were like the highest paid team, and you look at their team, and you're like, how?
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Mets actually, though, the money's actually finally paying off. The Mets, who I think are number 2 right now in baseball, are also in leading the National League East, which I was so shocked because they have no pitching, at least on paper.
Give it a month. Let's see where they're at.
No, well, that's the thing too. Is to your point, it is early in the year, but and again, it's interesting to see the standings. The Tigers right now have a nice lead in the Central. Cleveland hanging around. No offense aside from Jose Ramirez, but they always seem to find good quality pitching that keeps them competitive. I mean, Cleveland has the 10th worst run differential in all of baseball, and they still have a stranglehold on what would be a wild card spot right now. But you guys, I mean,
is pretty good too. Like they have the Class A-est closer.
Yes.
I stepped on my own joke, and I'm very mad at myself right now.
But that's the funny thing is Clase's had a terrible April. If he had done what he did last year, they might actually be right knocking on the door for first place with you guys. But and speaking of underperforming bullpens, my Yankees traded a starter that we desperately needed to Milwaukee for a closer who has now blown 6 saves in 6 weeks of the season. So Devin Williams clearly can't handle the bright lights of New York, at least not so far. But the Yankees are still in first place because we have a guy named Aaron Judge. Speaking of generational talents.
Amazing.
Yeah, just
look.
I mean, there's no arguing he's the best player in baseball.
I drafted Devin Williams in my fantasy league, but now I have some guy named Weaver on my team. Can you believe it?
Yeah, no. Luke Weaver, again, the Yankees are great. You know what? Brian Cashman is better at making those under the radar moves and then failing at the big splashy trade.
That's fair.
Right?
Point.
Like the Devin Williams of the world, like all these big trades have always failed, but then it's like this guy Fernando Cruz who has a 6 ERA with Cincinnati. Hey buddy, how about you throw your splitter for a strike? It's like, I can do that? Yeah, you can do that. And now he's got a sub-2 ERA, and I think he's striking out like 12 guys per 9 innings, and he's like a lights-out 7th inning man for us. Luke Weaver bounced around. You mentioned Luke Weaver. On the trash heap, Yankees are like, why don't you shorten your delivery? He's like, I can do that? He's like, yeah, just do a quick little sidestep. And now his changeup is one of the most lethal pitches in baseball, and he's had a sub-2 ERA the last year and a half, right? Like, but you trade Devin Williams, who's an all-star closer for the Brewers. He comes to the Yankees. He has a 10 ERA. Make it make sense.
I'd like to make it make sense, but here's the deal. Look, as a Yankee hater, and I will go on the record as saying that anytime the Yankees make a bad decision, it fills me with joy. This is a few years ago, but when the Tigers bounced the Yankees out of the playoffs, I wore my Detroit hat around, and I'm not even kidding. No one likes the Yankees, Ray. I'm sorry to tell you. I walked around with my Tigers hat, and everywhere I went, people were being like, good job, high five, shake my hand, great. Like everywhere I go, I was like a local celebrity because everyone hates the Yankees that much everywhere you go.
You'll love to hate us. Everybody needs a good villain, and we're happy to be the evil empire. But yeah, look, your Tigers, going back to, I want to finish up. Your Tigers this year, you mentioned Tarek Skubal, but also some guys are starting to finally hit their stride. Casey Mize, who had been great. He's 6-1 now. He's got a sub-3 ERA. He's 28 years old. He finally seems to be, he's also healthy, right? He's had a lot of injury issues. It does help, but he seems to really be finally hitting all the potential that they've talked about with him. Gleyber Torres, who I thought was done, obviously had the terrible few years with the Yankees, was an all-star for 2 years. Then the pandemic happened, hasn't been the same since. Hitting 295 for you guys. And you guys might have finally unlocked Javi Baez.
Javi Baez, actually, that's the biggest surprise of the entire year. Javi Baez playing center field sometimes, and also suddenly remembering how to hit again. And you might remember this will mean nothing to the people at home. Me and you, before the season started, had a conversation about Gleyber Torres, and we both said, I think this move could be the best thing to happen to him. He's not going to be expected to carry any load in Detroit whatsoever. He's going to be like the number 6 hitter or something, and all he's got to do is get out there and produce enough. And out of the position will be happy, and he's well blown away. And we both called it. We both thought he would come in and have a very up year compared to the last 2. So I'm very excited to see that as well. I would also say Flaherty out as the starting pitcher has been pretty good. Yeah. And then we just released Kente Maeda, which that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got that's a great big 3: Mize, Skubal, and Flaherty. That's a legit 3-man rotation.
I'll take them in any playoff series.
100%. Right? Those are guys that I do not want to face in the early rounds of the playoffs. If again, and we might have to as the Yankees. Although I believe if the season ended today, I do believe actually it would be the Mariners and Tigers who would get the wild cards, because the Mariners, Julio Rodriguez finally, he had his sophomore slump last year, he had a great rookie year, sophomore slump last year. Now he's back. Luis Castillo, obviously legit ace in Seattle. And the rest of the West, not really performing up to expectations. But again, as we said several times in this segment, we're only 6 weeks into baseball season. There's a lot
to go. There's a lot to go.
Yeah, 100%. So, but we will definitely have to have you back on in a few months, my friend, to talk about.
I love coming on, talking about stuff. I just got to get invited. What's going on with that?
I mean, look, we're the Geeks Who Like Sports. We're going through a lot of things right now, right? Going through a lot of changes,
aren't we all?
Yeah, I know, exactly. Real quick, because since it is Geeks Who Like Sports, what are you playing right now, my friend? Ray, what are you playing? What games you got?
I've been playing a game called Blueprints, which is free on Xbox Game Pass. It's a puzzle game that all the nerds are playing. All the underground nerds are playing it. It is check this out. It's a roguelike game with a kind of a nice soft animation style where you're building a house. You're building rooms of a house by getting random rooms and then attaching them together. And then you have keys and you need gems to unlock rooms, and you got to get these somehow. And the whole thing is puzzles on top of puzzles on top of puzzles. Think like original Myst or Seventh Guest or Riven. It's that style of kind of puzzling out in the world and just putting words together in unique ways and coming up with secret codes for safes based on what's in the room with you, but it doesn't ever actually tell you that. And it's a lot of like digging through, expanding the house, picking up new rooms, looking at all the papers there and trying to put it together. Like that one, It's Always Sunny on Philadelphia, where Charlie's got all the things on the wall with the strings.
Yes.
That's playing Blueprints. And it's a roguelike as well. And when you run out of steps or wall yourself out, you're done and you start completely over from the beginning again with only limited things carrying over that you have to unlock. So you lose all the items, you lose all the keys, all the rooms reset every single day. So I played 67 runs before I finally got to the quote-unquote objective, only to find out that there's a much larger objective, of course, as is always the case with these games. Yes. It's free on Game Pass. It might not be for everybody, but if you like that type of puzzle games, if what I said resonates at all, check it out, because it's not a game I would normally get into. Yeah. And I think I might finally, I haven't completed it, but I did the main objective and I kind of need to breathe. I've been letting it control my life too much the last, say, like 3 weeks. So I'm going to, I got to pick something out. I'm going to finish the Call of Cthulhu game, which is essentially, at the end of the day, I love Cthulhu stuff. I like the Arkham horrors of the world, playing Arkham Horror, the card game, in my spare time. It's wonderful. And I really like the Call of the Cthulhu game. It's not overly long. It's mostly kind of a walking simulator with dialogue and limited puzzles. I'm definitely enjoying it. I just have to sit down. If it wasn't for Blueprints, I would have finished it by now. And then I'm going to take on a big game, I want to try to play a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I want to play a Silent Hill 2. Those are both sitting right now. But I also know I just bought RoboCop on sale. And boy, if I don't know exactly where my brain's going to go when I'm suddenly ready to play something different again.
Yes, no, 100%. Yeah, I just picked up I downloaded RoboCop on the PS Plus. It was the April PS Plus month. I have to play that myself. But I'm also loving Game Pass. I just finished South of Midnight.
I need to play that too. Oh, that might be my next game, actually. I've heard too many good things.
I absolutely adored it. I think it's the best thing that Compulsion's has done yet, which I feel like Compulsion has only gotten better and better and better with every subsequent game they've released. Always had great ideas, but like this one, they really executed it as well. The animation is beautiful. The music is beautiful. It's a really touching story. It's very solid action adventure-y game mechanics. I absolutely adored South of Midnight.
No, tell me a little bit more about that studio, because I actually don't know that studio too well. What other games have they done? Maybe I've heard of those.
Oh, so Compulsion, oh gosh, I'm gonna look it up real quick, because I've played all of their games and am now blanking on like half of their titles. Contrast was the first big one, right? Which was a game, kind of like a puzzle platformer where you had to use light and shadow to you could basically jump between the real world and the shadow world, and you could climb through certain things based on where the shadows were, and then you could come back out to the real world. It was a really well done, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at a picture of it right now. I remember this game. I thought it
Yeah.
looked cool, but I never checked it out.
Also on Game Pass now, by the way. Contrast is also on Game Pass. And We Happy Few, which was a really big one. Which is
a big deal. That's on Game Pass as well, and that's another one I meant to check out because I thought it looked good and I never did.
Yeah. And that one I felt was like, because I'm not the biggest roguelike guy. I loved the world they created, but I felt, this crumbling, English dystopia, verge of collapse of everything because everybody's using too much, drugs and, all that other stuff. It was solid. I personally prefer, I love Contrast and South of Midnight more, but that's just because I prefer action adventure and puzzle platformer over roguelike. That's just my personal my personal jam. But they've never, to me though, South of Midnight checks all the boxes. It definitely, you can see if you look at those games the lessons they learn from each one and how it pays off here in terms from both a storytelling and a technical aspect.
I love that. And to be fair, and actually I forgot the other one. There's two. South of Midnight is actually one of those games that I feel like I need to play. Also, like, I think Avowed just came out, which I'm very interested in.
Loved Avowed.
Which seems very good. But also Claire Obscura, Expedition 33. Also is right there in my wheelhouse of like amazing looking games. I remember seeing it on one of the Games Direct that Xbox did.
Yeah.
With that, I think South of Midnight might have been on the same show together. And I was like, God dang it. We are eating good over in Xbox world right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're a week away from the new Doom dropping on Game Pass.
I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
The medieval Doom drops next week.
Doom the Dark Ages. Yeah, I didn't realize that was coming out so quickly. Good deal. And with GTA 6 being pushed to 2026. Like, who didn't see that coming?
Yeah.
I love the fact that all these game companies have been terrified to release anything from June to December of this year at all. They were, even if it was completely ready, they were not going to release it because they all sit in fear of the shadow that GTA 6 is going to have come like April, May of next year.
Yeah, May of next year, early May, I believe.
Yeah, but, what's hilarious about that is you're going to now see between now and April of 2026, a lot of games force themselves to get out now that the cat's away. All the mice are going to come out. You're going to see a lot of games drop, and a lot of them won't be finished. And they're going to come out Q1, early Q2 of next year. I promise you this right now. What do I know about games? I promise you this right now. There's going to be a lot of unfinished stuff that people are rushing to market because they don't want to hit. I would be shocked if anything outside of Call of Duty and Madden drops in the second half of 2026. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it's going to be a dry spell for sure. But and you're starting to see other folks confirm the release dates because of it. Ghost of Yotei, it says, October 2nd, we're dropping now October because
it's safe now.
It's safe. We know exactly where to go. So you're starting to see that. Also speaking of game releases, what are your thoughts on? You have any thoughts on the Switch 2? We're a month away from Switch 2 dropping, and they're gonna have five big titles in the first 6 months for Switch.
I haven't been a big Nintendo guy for a while, and look, and this is going to be me sounding a little sniffy, but I've always, for a long time now, considered, since like the Wii came out and was hugely popular, it's video games for not non-gamers, but for casual gamers. A lot of younger people and a lot of much older people. Not that I'm not that at this point, but a lot of, people who don't normally game get the Nintendo system. There's a lot of people who have a Switch who are under the age of 10 and over the age of 40. Let's just keep it real, right? 50 at this point. And so the Switch 2 is one of those things I don't really understand. A Switch with like much better hardware that's going to play more AAA games. That's not the appeal of the system.
Yeah.
And also the price point is very high to me for a handheld device, especially before all these terrible tariffs start coming in. And it suddenly is going to balloon to $849 or whatever in order to get one. Like, I don't know exactly who this is for. The
Yeah.
people that already have a Switch are probably fine with the Switch they have. If they
Yeah.
really wanted to play those games, they would get a PlayStation or an Xbox, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess in my head, I'm confused. Now, obviously, Nintendo is better at video games than Ray is. I'll say that. I won't tell you which one. But I will say they're smarter than me. They make more money hand over fist than I could ever dream of. They're very, very successful since the 1800s. This is a company that knows what they are doing. That's a true story.
Yes.
That's a company that knows what they are doing, how to make money, how to ride the tide, how to do their own thing and get away with it. This is obviously going to do very well. You never discount anything Nintendo does, except for that Labo thing with the weird cardboard folding. What was that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Sometimes you take big swings and big misses, right?
You do. Look, they also had Robbie the Robot too, and the Power Gloves. So they can't all be gems.
The peripherals aren't their specialty, right? The Super Scope. Like, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So
I think the smartest thing they could do with the Switch 2 is deeply limit its release. To make sure you sell the ones that you have and don't make more, and then leave it like the PS5 was when it first came out for like 18 months. Just let people not have it and want it. And that's how you're going to sell it. I think you have a very limited drop at first, especially, given a lot of the uncertainty out there in the world. To me, that makes sense. They're going to be successful they're going to make money. You said there are some good releases. They rely on the same set of games every single console release. I mean, keep it real. And they're always very good, and they're always very successful and popular. I just, I don't know. I think the selling point of the Switch 2 to me isn't there. And I'm wondering if for that price point, it's going to be there for a lot of other people as well, given their target audience.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think they also shot themselves in the foot by basically the week before showing off the Switch 2 for the first time. They showed off Metroid Prime 4 and a new Pokemon game, Pokemon Z to A, on the regular Switch. And you're basically like, for me, I would have saved those for the Switch 2 announcement and then been like, oh, it's also going to be on Switch. But instead, now, like to your point, you're giving people less reason to upgrade off the bat. Like, because I think the Donkey Kong game looks great. I think it, like, in terms of the particle effects, it's doing what Astrobot did with PlayStation. Like, it's just absolutely taking full advantage of, like, all the rock destruction and obviously still with all the charm and love of Donkey Kong. And obviously Mario Kart is... It is a system seller, whether you want it to be or not. Mario Kart is what, drives so many sales. But then beyond that, I'm going to get Metroid Prime 4. I don't know what system I'm going to get it for, if Switch or Switch 2. But I'm going to get the new Pokemon. I don't know what system I'm going to get it for, though. Right? I feel like you took two possible bullets out of your gun by saying that this is going to, that they're going to bridge the generation with these particular games.
My one big prediction for the Switch 2, and I haven't seen this confirmed anywhere. This is just me spitballing and where I think it's going based on the climate of the industry. I think what you're going to see is the Switch 2 comes out and Xbox Game Pass is going to be available for the Switch 2, given its new hardware power and its ability to play the games that Xbox can also play. I believe you're going to see an announcement sooner rather than later, I should say, saying that Xbox Game Pass will be an available thing you can get subscribed to on the Switch 2. And I don't know if that's going to be something they have upon release, but I think if you look at it like 6 months, a year down the line, mark my words right now, the way Microsoft is going and the way Nintendo's going, what better reason to upgrade your Switch 2 than to allow yourself Xbox Game Pass and all of what's in there, which is a lot.
Oh yeah, it is a ton. And that's a great idea, because we've known that Microsoft has been kicking the can or kicking the tires on possibly the handheld market and all this other stuff. That'd be an easy way for them to get there. And now with games like Gears of War coming to PlayStation and Forza coming to PlayStation, it is clear Microsoft does not care about their big IP being on competitors. If anything, again, it only adds money to their pockets because now it's franchises that used to not be there. Like, I know a lot of Sony fans who are going to probably go play Gears of War for the first time because it's going to be on PS5 soon. Right?
It's going to be crazy to watch a lot of these PlayStation fans fall over themselves to suddenly say nice things about this franchise that they've been crapping on for 20 years. It's weird how that's going to suddenly work out.
Yes. Well, on that note, man, I'm going to try to only keep you a short time, but this ended up being a full-length episode, my friend. I really appreciate all your time tonight.
I can't stop talking once I got started. There was no way this was not going to be a full-length or longer episode.
Well, Ray, I really appreciate your time. Again, folks, go listen to, if you want to hear more of Ray's talking, Ray Stakenas over on the Who Would Win Masters podcast. And you'll have a guest appearance by me shortly as well over there. You go check him out there. And then, of course, stay tuned, folks. We're going to be back with regular episodes of Geeks Who Like Sports soon. As soon as Lee's back from winning more hockey trophies.
Can I plug a couple other things?
By all means, please, Ray. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
I do want to tell people about the Who Would Win Masters show briefly. I've talked enough. I could talk more. Who Would Win Masters is a Who Would Win style show debating fictional characters fighting each other. Who would win in a fight between these characters from comic books, movies, anime, video games, wherever the heck we can pull them from. It's a pretty wonderful show. And we've recently split the show into 2 different shows. There was an original show on the network. Now there's 2 shows with each of our hosts, myself and James Gavsey, each taking our own show to kind of spin it in our own direction and kind of try to grow the network from there. Who Would Win Masters is my version of it. It's timed rounds, 3 rounds. We debate back and forth, and then the people ultimately decide. We come back the following week, and we talk about all of the commentary, all of the comments. I actually go into the comment section, get my hazmat suit ready, and then we actually have a vote. And we talk about like who did well, who didn't, what points resonated with people, and we listen to the fans. So it's really a community-centric show that Ray Carsillo here is going to be on probably, when you hear this, probably about 4 weeks away. It's not going to be quite immediately with the cadence of how often the show comes out. But Ray will be on the show relatively soon, and I'm sure he'll go live and tell you when it's coming, or follow me. You can check out the show. You just find Who Would Win Show on wherever you podcast. We're like the #1 thing that's going to pop up. And then you'll see my show, Who Would Win Masters, his little crown logo. It's delightful. And all of that. So come on, listen to the show. We have a great anime versus video game battle forum. And if you liked hearing me here, then come do it. If you didn't like hearing me here, then do it anyway. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, I do have a couple other things. Knowing is half the podcast. Got to talk about. It's myself and Robert Clark Chan, TV's Gina Ippolito, TV writer. We talk about cartoons primarily from the 80s and 90s. We get saucy. We get naughty. We say a lot of bad words. And we kind of goof around and have a good time talking about some of the weirdest, wildest, and most terrible cartoons of our childhood, revisiting a lot of stuff to see if it still holds up. And despite doing the show for nearly 10 years now, primarily a G.I. Joe show when we started, but we've branched out into other things. Boy, there's a lot out there. That's a big topic to cover. You're never going to get to it all, but we have a really good time with it. If you think I'm mildly amusing, you might want to check out that show as well. And then finally, Reclaim Detroit, the Vampire the Masquerade audio drama, which I wrote. I'm a character in. I directed it. And I don't know, produce it, I suppose. It's a fully voiced audio drama with some of the best talent in voice acting. I cannot believe the talented people that came into the show. If you like video games, there's video games actors up and down the show. If you like, voiceover people, there's a lot of those people as well. It's crazy how people that I asked all said yes, and I can't believe it. But you don't need to know about Vampire the Masquerade, the role-playing game, but if you do, my goodness, what are you doing? You should be listening to it right now. You can find that at Reclaim Detroit, wherever you podcast, or go to vampiredetroit.com, and you can listen to that. There are 7 current episodes, and I'm hoping to finish season 1 in the relative near future, but I'm very, very slow at making content when no one's pushing me to do it.
Fair enough. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. You are a podcast machine, my friend.
This is all I do.
It's just this and play video games. It's not bad life. Not bad life.
Work in video games, play video games, talk a whole bunch of nonsense about nonsense things with people that I enjoy hanging around with. What more could I add? What a great life it's been. Next time we're on, we'll talk about my professional wrestling career.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, we've actually we both I was a commentator in an indie league a long time ago. So yeah, we can trade some more stories there, but I don't want to take up any more of your time, and I really do appreciate it, Ray. It means a lot. So thank you for stopping by here for the Geeks Who Like Sports. So for Ray, I'm Ray. It's Ray and Ray.
I'm confused still.
I'm so confused. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. Be sure to stay tuned. We'll be back very soon with regular episodes. But until then, this has been Geeks Who Like Sports. Good night, everybody.